What was the strangest rule you had to respect at a friend's house? I was around 8, when I went to a friend's place for a playdate and asked for a cup of water. Friend's mum pulls out one of the biggest glasses 8-year-old me had seen and filled it to the brim. I was only used to the small plastic cups at this stage, so was not used to such a large amount of water. After drinking just over a 1/4 of the glass, I went to go pour it out because I didn't want the rest. I was full up. Friend stopped me and said that we weren't allowed to pour out water, we had to drink it. 8-year-old me thought that was weird, but looking back, sure, good way to teach kids not to waste water, especially here in Australia where droughts are so common. So if I wasn't allowed to pour it out, what could I do with it? I thought I would just leave it for later. Friend once again stopped me and explained I wasn't allowed to leave it, I had to drink it all. I said I was thirsty anymore when her mum walked in, and told me that water wasn't allowed to be wasted in this house and I better drink it all. Like right then and there. If you wanted water, you weren't allowed to leave it and come back later. You had to sit there and finish it. 8-year-old me tried to argue why I couldn't leave it for later, and the mum got pissed and had me sit at the kitchen bench stool and finish this massive glass. I sat there grumpily for ages trying to finish this thing so I could go back to playing. I remember getting really uncomfortable because I needed to pee, and sure enough immediately afterwards I was dashing to the toilet. I get teaching kids not to just waste water but let them leave it to come back later. It's water, it won't spoil and they will drink it later. No boy talk. Her mom made us keep the intercom on when we were in her bedroom and would listen to us talk. If we started talking about boys, she would chime in and tell us to change the subject. We were 15/16ths and not having the privacy to talk about crushes and stuff felt weird. A good friend of mine went through a season where he didn't have running water at his house. So the rule in the house was that no one could come over, unless they brought a couple gallons of water with them to pour into the toilet, in the event that they had to poop. No one was allowed to laugh at the dinner table or talk other than to ask, please pass the ... No one was allowed to leave the table, even for a potty emergency, until the dad was done eating. When I was like 8 years old, I was playing at a friend's house in his room upstairs. Needed to go to the bathroom, so went for a pee in the toilet that was upstairs. His mom heard me from downstairs living room, don't know how. She was probably eavesdrop or something. Was yelled at while peeing that this toilet was not for daytime peeing, nighttime only for some reason. So his mom yelled and demanded the 8-year-old me to stop mid-pee, run downstairs, and finish on the daytime toilet. Never was invited again. Still to this day I don't have a clue what went on there and still have so many unanswered questions. We had to keep our hands above the covers when we went to sleep so they could make sure we weren't doing anything. I was 9. Literally was the last time I spent the night there. Weirdos. We had to finish all the milk in the cereal bowl. Like every drop. But we weren't allowed to pick up the bowl or be noisy. Imagine 3 little kids carefully trying to drink milk from a spoon without slurping or scraping the bowl, while one scary AF mom watched us in silence. I went round my new friend's house for dinner one night, and then the plan was to go and see Return of the King at the cinema. Ate food, chatting to him and his family, everything was normal. Then the time came to go to the cinema. And his family said to me, would you mind taking Gandalf? What? Turns out they had a 6-foot cardboard cutout of Gandalf upstairs and they had taken him to the first 2 LOTR movies and it had become a tradition. So I go upstairs, find the massive cardboard cutout, struggle to drag him down the stairs. At this point the family are in the car waiting for me. I mutter to myself thinking, how the hell is this gonna fit in the car? I drag Gandalf to the car and open the door and they're all laughing their asses off at me. There was no tradition. They were just teasing me. Finally, an Askreddit for me, I grew up homeschooled up until my first year of high school. Let me tell you, I met a lot of really cool people with awesome families, but also a lot of really strange families. Homeschooling can be great until it's used for the wrong reasons, which in my experience is shockingly common. A list of weird rules I had to follow while over at different houses within homeschooling groups I was a part of. 1. No red nail polish. Her daughters couldn't paint their nails red or even wear the color red. If we were going to come over, we had to remove any red nail polish and wear non-sexual colors. 2. Could not say oh my gosh because it sounded too much like oh my god and it's a sin to take God's name in vain. 3. We needed to cover our shoulders before her brothers, and especially her father, returned home. 4. Not a rule that I personally had to follow, but one family banned the use of Crest toothpaste. Their parents had something against the brand? I'm not sure, won this TBH. 5. Was not allowed to be alone in the same rooms as friend's father. As an adult I get why, but at the time I was like 6. One family I knew wasn't allowed to listen to music that their father didn't like. Not because he didn't like it because it was anti-Christian, he simply just didn't like the sound. They couldn't buy albums or download songs that he wouldn't listen to himself. They were able to listen to a lot of 80s stuff, which isn't a problem, but like, come on. 7. Could not address her parents as anything other than yes sir or yes ma'am. That's all that I could immediately pull off the top of my head. It's been years, Lamau. When I was like 11 or 12, I slept over at one of my friend's houses. I had to go to bed at 8:30 on the dot, and her mom would walk in the bedroom every 15 minutes to make sure we were asleep and not talking. I didn't have a phone, so it wasn't like I could occupy myself. I told her mom that it is hard for me to fall asleep that early, and asked if I could hang out outside of the room for a bit until I was tired. Nope, I had to go to bed at 8:30, because I was invited and therefore I need to follow their rules. I stopped having sleepovers there, and started having them with another neighborhood girl, because we had a lot more freedom. The other friend's mom got mad at me for staying over at another friend's house rather than her daughter's. No coughing in the kitchen. It doesn't matter that the kitchen was huge, at least 20 by 20, or if you covered your mouth. And this was 25 years before COVID. I learned the hard way one Thanksgiving. As an invited guest at my friend's house, I naturally entered the kitchen to ask if her mother needed any help. A sudden tickle hit the back of my throat and I coughed to clear it. Her mother gave me the look of death, turned around, picked up the tray with the cooked turkey on it and proceeded to throw it in the garbage. I was mortified. I ended up leaving shortly after. Not a friend's house, but my aunt's. She took care of me while my parents went on some trip when I was a kid, and I stayed for about a week. My mom packed me some snacks, my fully charged Nintendo DS, and my MP3 player filled with Hannah Montana songs in my little backpack. As soon as I arrived to my aunt's, who has 3 younger and adopted kids, she took away my snacks because she was worried my little cousins would get jealous and want them. She took away my Nintendo and put it in a box, because apparently The Legend of Zelda is too violent, and she didn't want her kids exposed to that sort of reckless nature. She even took away my MP3 player and put it in that same box because music of any kind was not allowed in the house. Also, she'd made 3 full meals a day. And I'm not talking about just a regular course kid meal, I'm talking about an entire plate full that an adult could eat, for breakfast, lunch and dinner. With me having a small stomach, I physically was unable to finish everything on my plate and I wasn't allowed to leave the table until every single thing on the plate was gone for each meal. I sat at that table for hours SMH. That's not even counting the snacks she gave us throughout the day. Let's just say my mom regrets letting me stay with my aunt for that week. I even got super sick because the doctor said I was eating way too much than what a kid is normally supposed to eat. It was miserable and I hated it. My friend's mom's boyfriend had one of those rooms we weren't allowed in for any reason. Problem was, it was the living room. It was impossible to get to the kitchen without going through that living room. Also, couldn't reach the door to the backyard. So I never once entered the kitchen in that house, and any trips to the backyard meant walking out the front door and going through the gate on the side of the house. If I slept over, I had to go to church with them in the morning. I guess part of the agreement was that the trade-off was going to church. Going home wasn't an option, or I couldn't sleep over. My mother went to the same church. It wasn't a conversion thing. Don't speak to or touch the brothers. It seemed really weird that I couldn't even say so much as a hi to them, but the parents just told me I couldn't. So I went over to their house, when I was 11, and we had a pretty normal day until her twin brothers came down. The brothers gave off a weird vibe and kept trying to talk to me. Eventually I caved in and said hello. My friend stared at me as if I was about to get killed or something, as if since all I did was say hi that something bad would happen. The boys then started to comment on my body. I'm a girl by the way and was an early bloomer, and they were in 9th grade. I thought this was weird but didn't know what to say, so I just chuckled and asked my friend if she wanted to watch TV in the other room. She said yes and we left. One of the brothers asked if he could see me in the other room. I was a little kid and didn't really know how to say no, so I said yes. He started to caress my cheek and told me about how he had been waiting to meet me. Luckily my friend said she got the movie on, so I left. The brothers went upstairs. When my mom came to pick me up, the boys came downstairs to say goodbye, and this MF winks at me before I leave. I later found out that apparently she had been talking about me at home to her brothers and stuff, and one of them said very odd things, and when she showed him a pic of me he got very inappropriate and was very excited I was coming over. Needless to say I never went to their house again. No sitting in the living room. All the furniture was covered in plastic. The living room was considered for show only.